She puts the wow, yum into words. It's the Lafayette Food Junkie herself on News Talk 96.5 KPEL.
Welcome to the Lafayette Food Junkie Show on News Talk 96.5 KPEL. I'm your host, Tiffiany Decou. Here we talk about all the food happenings around Acadiana. If you like food, tune in. You might learn something new. Welcome back. I hope you guys are recovering from Festival Acadiana. It was a fun, food-filled 2 days. I didn't get to spend as much time out there as I wanted to. In fact, today I wish I was out there, and instead I was moving. But believe me, I really wish that I was out there eating all the food that I kept seeing on my Instagram pages. I got to try a couple of cool things. I want to say that the best thing that I tried the whole weekend was the boucherie plate from Joie de Vie, and I was completely surprised by it. I think Friday night, a lot of people weren't buying it because they were a little, I guess they didn't know what to expect. But I'm fully aware of what a boucherie plate is, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. My only suggestion was mustard. So maybe next year, if they come out and do it again, they should put some mustard on it. But great. They did bologna. There was ham. There was andouille sausage. There was a head cheese, and there was rillette and a pickle and some bread. And it was wonderful and quite filling. And then for some reason this year, everything that Poop Arts had on their menu, I wanted. They always have the shrimp tasso pasta, which is great. They do little puff pastries with, I want to say, shrimp étouffée on top of it. I went for the bread bowl this year. This was my first time having their bread bowl. So now I think I've had all of the bread bowl options at the festivals. The Bon Creole normally does one. Pops did one at Festival International last year, and now I've experienced the Poop Arts spinach and artichoke one, which I have to say is probably a more fancy version of the bread bowls. And it got to a point where I was so full, but I could not stop eating it, and I finally had to go throw it away because I was going to eat that entire bread bowl myself, and then I would have hated myself the next day. Joining me tonight as guest co-host is Daphne Olivier. You may know her as my food coach, and she's coming on to talk about Acadiana Food Day with us today. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me. This will be fun.
Okay, so you went to Festival Acadiana as well. What did you get to eat, and what did you like?
The only thing I had, my family enjoyed many, many things, but I had the dirty nachos from Taco Sister.
Oh my God, I wanted that so bad yesterday before I left.
I am such a sucker for nachos. I mean, they were really good too.
Theirs are so good. Okay, so if you're not familiar, it's black bean. It's like a black bean dip.
Right.
And then they don't use tortilla chips. They use Zapp's potato chips.
Right. And I'm a sucker for Zapp's potato chips too. Oh, it was really, really good.
I wish that they served that on the regular menu, but that could be possibly dangerous for me, and that I would make a lot more trips over there. But it's something that they typically serve whenever they're at different events. And man, that was the one thing that I said I needed to get, and it didn't happen. I also got some boudin from Charlie T's, and it was great. I hadn't had boudin in a while, and it kind of hit the spot yesterday morning, eating it while I watched the kids play at the playground. Going to a festival with kids is a completely different experience in that, no, they do not want to hear about the difference between Cajun and Creole cuisine. Yes, they do want to go play on the playground equipment. Luckily, the playground equipment was close enough to the music so you could hear the music. It was kind of in the middle of the festival. And then they kind of forgot about it, but then by the time we left the park, I was ready to go. They had little kids activities out there too that they do at Festival Acadiana. Yeah, I think they were making like accordions, like little paper accordions or something like that, or washboards. Nice. Yeah, they were doing different kind of activities out there.
I know Stellar had a booth. Well, I say a booth. They had a tent, and they had some the little beanbag toss game and chess, and they were inviting kids in. That's where we spent most of our time.
Okay. I wish that I would have seen that, and then I would have taken them there. We did get some popsicles. I think the go-sickles. Is that what they're called?
I saw them, but I don't remember what they were called.
We got some of those. I got the blood orange one, and I was really surprised at how good it was. And it was so hot. Like this weather, I'm so over it. Like where's my cold weather? Yes. It's fall. It's horrible. I'm sweating as much as I do at Festival International. Like, this is supposed to be the cool temperature.
Yeah, it's fall in other places. It's summer here.
Not here. And I remember when I was looking at the food list, I was like, popsicles, it's going to be fall. Nobody's going to want popsicles.
Yeah.
Cut to, it's like 80 degrees. Right. I'm sweating. Give me all the popsicles.
Right.
But they were a hit with the kids. So that was really great. Okay, so if anyone is wondering where you can get meat products from Toby Rodriguez, he recently took over the meat market that is attached to Crawfish Town, USA. This literally just happened this weekend. So go get your boudin from him in Breaux Bridge Henderson area. I'm super excited about this. I've been following him on Instagram, and they were posting. They were smoking a bunch of meats, and some of them were like rabbit and different rabbit stuffed things. And
nice.
I want to taste his. I don't think I've ever had his boudin, so I'm very curious.
Yeah, and I live in Breaux Bridge, so I'm really excited.
It's really close. Okay, so since you live in Breaux Bridge, I have to ask you: have you gone to White Fox yet?
No, I haven't.
You need to go. It is.
I haven't even heard of it.
Okay, it's probably the most authentic Chinese food that you can get around. She made special custom made stoves that the woks will fit in better so they can get the higher temperature. And there's also running water on the stove. Some of the best dumplings that I've ever had. It's right off of the Old Breaux Bridge Highway. It's right over there. In fact, they were open and they were so popular that they shut down and moved into a bigger location to accommodate people better. I was craving Chinese food tonight, and I was like, why am I not closer to Breaux Bridge? Because I was like, that's the Chinese food that I want.
Oh, I'll have to go check it out.
It is it's so good. It really is. The dumplings, though, really get the dumplings. They have a pretty big menu, and it can be a little overwhelming, but the dumplings are a must, and they have other really cool things on there. All right, we are going to take our first break, and when we come back, we have more with Daphne Olivier. So come back to us. It's the Lafayette Food Junkie Show on News Talk 96.5 KPEL.
Lafayette Food Junkie Show, served up medium rare every Sunday night.
Welcome back to the Lafayette Food Junkie Show on News Talk 96.5 KPEL. I'm your host, Tiffiany Decou, and joining me tonight is Daphne Olivier with My Food Coach. And so I'm just going to let you know, during the break, we both found out that we both work in insurance in our day jobs, and we were having gripes about insurance filing and billing and coding. So it feels good to talk to somebody about this who knows what I'm talking about, because otherwise people are like, I have no idea what you're saying. So you feel my pain.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So this was my first week of getting a CSA. We had Steven come on the show with Inglewood Farms, and he convinced me to get a CSA. This was my first one. I was like, let me put my money where my mouth is and get into this and get these vegetables once a week.
How many weeks is it?
It is 12 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm excited, but then also I'm a little bit overwhelmed because it's a lot of vegetables. So the nice thing is that they give you a list of what you're getting before you go pick it up at market, and he gives you ideas of what you can do with the different vegetables, and there's some recipes that come with it too. So I was excited because this is kind of my favorite way to cook. It's very Top Chef-esque in that I like to use what I already have, and I like to kind of build things from there. So in this week's CSA, I got turnips, radishes, wheat berries, which was the one thing that threw me for a loop, cucumbers, salad greens, and bok choy. The turnips I'm going to make in a salad with the salad greens. I'm going to kind of cook them in bacon grease because everything's better in bacon grease and then put an egg on top. Like it's going to be like a little salad is what I'm going to do with that. So not only do I have the turnips, but I have the turnip greens. And
That's
so the
awesome.
greens I'm going to make just a side of greens with probably with bacon grease again. Okay, let me ask you this really quickly because it was something that came up in a conversation. I hate putting sugar in vegetables, and I know people do it.
Right.
And greens are one of those things that they do put sugar in. What are your thoughts on that?
So sugar the reason that people will put sugar in greens mostly is because because greens have a bitter flavor.
Right.
So it kind of cuts the bitterness. You could also so my thoughts on sugar, anytime that you put sugar in something, then, it's affecting blood sugar and that sort of thing. And being that I work with a lot of people that have diabetes, and that's kind of one of my passions, it kind of makes my skin crawl also putting sugar
but they do
in.
it a lot.
Everywhere. Yeah. But other things would be something with acid in it, like a vinegar or even lemon juice can help to cut the bitterness of the vegetables too.
I was going to cook it in bacon grease again. That's kind of my philosophy with vegetables. I'm like, no to sugar, yes to bacon grease.
So you could put a little bit of balsamic vinegar in there, and there is a little bit of sugar and balsamic vinegar, so that'll kind of give you the best of both worlds.
That sounds
a little tad of sugar.
Yeah, that sounds really good to me because I never put sugar in my vegetables, and I always kind of cringe. But I mean, I know that people do it, especially with grains and like green beans.
My mother-in-law puts sugar in all of her vegetables. It drives me crazy.
I've heard of people putting it in corn, and I'm like, why are you putting this in corn?
Yes.
It is a sugar.
Yes.
To begin with, but people do it. Okay, so the turnips are nice. Get 2 uses out of that. The radishes, I'm going to do a quick pickle on the radishes.
Oh, nice.
And I'm going to use them. I'm going to make tacos, and I'm doing this thing in my household where one meal will be vegetarian and one meal will be meat. So it depends on where we are in the week. So it's either going to be like a pork carnita taco or a black bean taco is what we'll do with that.
Nice.
Okay, the wheat berries I was having the hardest time with because so his suggestions were a salad. You could do it like oatmeal. And then also, if you're very crafty, Martha Stewart-ish, you can grind them and make your own biscuits with them. And I was like, okay, well, that's definitely not happening with them. So I got online and I kind of just Googled recipes with wheat berries. And I came across somebody that was using them in place of bulgur wheat, and they did a tabbouleh with it. So I'm going to do I have this great idea that I'm going to blacken some cauliflower, cook it with turmeric, and then make some hummus and put the cauliflower on top of the hummus. And now I'm going to have tabbouleh to go with it too. So it'll go with the whole theme. And then the bok choy, I found this Filipino soup recipe that had pork ribs in it too with the bok choy. So I'm going to do something with that. We were talking about the wheat berries before the show. What were some other things that you were kind of thinking about doing with the wheat berries?
So with wheat berries, you could do, put them in a soup. So a lot of this looks like soup ingredients.
Yes.
So your turnips, turnip greens, the bok choy, the wheat berries, all of that could make a really delicious soup with some good home cooked broth. You could also cook it and put it in with your salad greens. You could cook it into a pot of beans, like black-eyed peas or white beans or something like that. And that would give you a good flavor. What else?
See, and I don't know what I was expecting before I read online what it really was. But it's kind of, I mean, if you're using quinoa, you can kind of almost use it like quinoa too.
Yeah.
So to kind of use it that way. There will be no grinding into flour. Though.
Yeah, I think with the grinder, you have to have a really, really good grinder for that. So that would be the last thing you'd want is wheat berries that haven't quite been ground enough to try and bake with that would be really difficult.
Yeah, there's a lot of texture in these biscuits.
Right.
There's a lot of grain to it.
Right.
Okay, so you run My Food Coach, so tell us what that is if no one is familiar with that.
My Food Coach is my nutrition coaching practice. So I work with people that are trying to change their eating habits for a variety of different reasons. A lot of times it's medically related. So like I said, I work with a lot of people that have diabetes, either newly diagnosed or people that have had diabetes for a long time. Also with people who have a variety of health issues. So high cholesterol, a lot of digestive issues, irritable bowel syndrome, celiac disease, that sort of thing, and Hashimoto's thyroiditis, autoimmune diseases. So I usually work with people that have a medical reason to have to change their eating habits, but I also work with people who are just ready to make the change and do something different. So, and mostly what I do is one-on-one. I do groups also. The groups are usually classes or series of classes. And, yeah, I enjoy what I do.
You were teaching some classes a while back at Tops. Are you still doing those type of classes?
Yeah, that's where my office is. And actually it works out beautifully because my office is there. And then whenever we have classes or cooking demos or cooking classes or anything like that, it's just an easy transition right in there because they have live kitchens.
Very cool.
So it's very cool.
So people can follow you on Facebook and get more information about where to find these classes?
Yes, absolutely. It's my food coach on Facebook.
And the whole reason why you came on the show today is to talk about Acadiana Food Day, which is happening next Saturday, October 22nd.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So there are a couple of things going on with Acadiana Food Day. The first is that we have a food drive going on from October 1st. It started until October 21st, which is this coming Friday. And all of the proceeds from the food drive will go to FoodNet. And, FoodNet is one of the places in our community where people who are having trouble making ends meet can still get food and have good, healthy, quality foods there. So that's the first event going on with Food Day. The next is coming up on Wednesday night. We have the documentary Sustainability. A documentary is the name of the documentary. And that's going to be Wednesday night at 6 o'clock at E's Kitchen. And so it's just a viewing of the documentary, and obviously, it's about sustainability and farming and, what we can do, what our role is in keeping things sustainable. And that's Wednesday. And then on Saturday, we have, in conjunction with the farmers market at Moncus Park, we have an event celebrating healthy local foods. And so at the event, there will be a variety of different things. They'll have, we're going to have a seed swap at 10:30.
Okay.
So Lily Voorhees is running the seed swap. We'll have different presentations of people presenting what their passion is. So Marcus Descant with Urban Naturalist will be there.
And he's coming on next week's show.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Inglewood will be presenting. Paul Io with E's Kitchen is going to do a cooking demo. Rosanna with R2 Artisans. She does the fermentation.
Yes.
She'll do a demo on fermenting. And the Daigles that run Prudhoe City Farms will also be doing a presentation.
Very cool. So it's coinciding with the farmers market on Saturday.
Right.
And this is all free to the public?
Free to the public. There'll be lots of children's events, little mini yoga sessions for kids. There's going to be a fun jump. Some food art, different kinds of things with food art, games. So it should be a lot of fun. And I've been watching the weather, and it's going to be perfect.
Yay.
So it'll be a great day to have a morning out with the family.
Nice. Looking forward to this. This should be fun. Okay. I was talking to you about this before the show. In January, I'm thinking about doing Whole30. So if you're not familiar with what Whole30 is, you basically can't eat anything. It's whole foods. It's like meat, fruits, and vegetables.
Right. So the whole purpose of the Whole30 is to eliminate foods that would cause inflammation in the body.
And it's kind of a way to see what your body is reacting negatively to. Right.
So it's called an elimination diet, meaning that you eliminate all of the foods that could possibly cause inflammation and for 30 days. And then you gradually introduce those foods back in to see if anything is specifically causing inflammation. A lot of times people don't realize that when they eat certain foods, it may make them make their head achy or make them brain foggy or make their stomach a little uncomfortable. And it's not until you completely eliminate it and then isolate it back into your diet that you realize the effects that specific foods have on you.
Yeah, so after 30 days, you slowly reintroduce, and they have an order of that you're supposed to do it in, back these forbidden foods to see what, if you're having a reaction to it or not. I'm kind of scared that I'm going to have a reaction to dairy, and then that means not being able to eat cheese anymore. So right off the bat, I'm terrified about giving cheese up because I do low carb a lot, but even with low carb, you can still have cheese,
right?
And dairy. So I'm really scared. You can have eggs though on it.
I don't think so.
Oh, you can't?
No.
I'm gonna die. I don't know. I may have to rethink this.
Yeah. So the common thing with the Whole30 is that you're eliminating anything that has gluten in it. So that's all wheat, all dairy, all eggs, all sugar, soy, corn, shellfish.
Oh, I didn't know. Okay, I didn't know shellfish was on there too.
There may be a couple of other things, but it's a challenge. It's definitely a challenge. You'll learn a lot about yourself and your eating style whenever you do it. But people really, a lot of times when people do the Whole30 diet, you can modify it a little bit if you need to. So you can make it kind of fit your lifestyle. But a lot of times people realize how, the whole purpose of it is to realize how food affects you. And you may realize there are things that are affecting you that you would have never thought were really having an impact.
Well, whenever I did the juice cleanse, 2 years ago, it was so much more mentally than it was about the actual food itself. And I learned so much about myself and how I eat and what foods I crave, what foods I really crave. When you take out the junk, what you really crave, which for me, it was meat. So I realized I could never not eat meat. I have to have it in my diet, but maybe not eat as much of it as I normally do. And then caffeine too was the big one. I like to do those types of diets just to then drink coffee again to have it how my body reacts to it, because it reacts like it's drugs. I'm going to be completely honest. It feels like you're on drugs the first time you have caffeine after not having it for a while. And then you realize, you have all the withdrawals and everything, that comes with caffeine. And then when you do, it's crazy. Yeah. So I like to experiment. So maybe if I go with it like that, it'll be good. And I'll learn different things and see if maybe my body does react differently to different things. So it'll be a cool little challenge.
Well, and if the Whole30 is a little too much for you, always in January, I do the Real Food Challenge.
Yes.
And that's usually we'll do it for 28 days.
Okay.
And I don't have the exact starting date, but it's the mid-January-ish.
Yeah.
And, we do some support stuff with that where we meet. And it's not quite as restrictive as the Whole30. In fact, I kind of guide you through making your own rules.
Cool.
And then you stick with those particular rules for your 30 days.
All right, we are going to take another break, and when we come back, we have more with Daphne. So come back to us. It's the Lafayette Food Junkie Show on News Talk 96.5 KPEL.
The best tasting radio show in all of South Louisiana. It's the Lafayette Food Junkie Show on News Talk 96.5 KPEL.
Welcome back to the Lafayette Food Junkie Show on News Talk 96.5 KPEL. I'm your host, Tiffiany Decou, and joining as guest co-host tonight is Daphne Olivier with My Food Coach. So on last week's show, I talked to Chef Colt a little bit about this, and it was the idea of getting kids to eat vegetables. And he kind of agreed with me in that the only way they're going to try new things is to get them to eat it. And if I make a vegetable that they don't like, to just take 2 or 3 bites of it to try it. You have to at least try it. And what are your thoughts on that?
I agree. Kids' taste buds are very different from an adult's taste buds. So while it's very common to run into adults that don't eat vegetables, kids they just perceive it to be very differently. It's much more bitter than the way adults taste vegetables. But a couple of tricks that we'll use. One, yes, they definitely have the 2-bite rule, which we'll call the no thank you bite.
Yes.
And they have to take it no matter what. And we've had foster children in the past, and everybody is required to take the same 2 no thank you bites. And sometimes you've had to sit there with them for a very long time to just get them to taste it.
That's what I'm actually scared about. Like, I remember when I was little, one time not eating spaghetti because I hated spaghetti when I was a kid. And my parents sitting at the table with me forever. And I was like, not budging. They were trying to bribe me with candy. Like, if you eat this, like, you'll get I was not wanting to eat. And that's what I'm kind of terrified that they're not.
So you can negotiate with them a little bit. But another thing that you can do is to put vegetables into something that they already like. So spaghetti is a good one you can add things like shredded zucchini or carrots or eggplant or something like that into something because the tomato sauce has such a strong flavor that it can kind of mask it a little bit. Or chili. That's another great one to add vegetables to.
Like meatloaf, too.
Yeah,
meatloaf. Hide it in there.
Yeah, but you want to be careful to not necessarily hide it. I remember there was a cookbook that came out several years ago, Deceptively Delicious. And the whole premise of it was to grind and puree vegetables and put them in different things so that your kids are getting vegetables. And I don't necessarily know that I love that idea because while they are getting vegetables, they're not seeing them. And so they're not getting into the practice of eating vegetables. So another trick that I've used in the past is to give the vegetables a fun and exciting name.
Okay.
So one time I made a sauce out of broth, kale, and spinach, I think is what I had at that time. And I made a sauce with it. We put it over noodles, and it was almost kind of like a spaghetti type thing. And when the kids asked me, at this point we had 3 foster children. They're like, "What's for supper?" And I said, "Oh, it's Hulk sauce." Nice. And they all ate it, and I was just flabbergasted. I was completely prepared to be there all night long, and just with the fun name of it being called Hulk sauce, and they ate it. I've done that before with beet kvass. We called it superpower juice, and cool. It got them enough to taste it, so they didn't love it, but they tasted it. So.
My favorite was when I was unpacking the CSA yesterday and their faces of horror and like asking me what everything was and then making faces of disgust.
Right.
And I was like, okay, well, this is going to be fun. And I was like, okay, well, you guys are probably not going to have to eat any of this. However, I will say that there was also cucumbers in there, and I hate cucumbers. They love cucumbers. They'll just eat it raw. Like, I'll just slice it up and they'll eat it raw. So I was like, yes, that takes care of my cucumbers. That was the only thing in there that they were stoked about was the cucumbers.
Well, and so in a case like that, putting some sugar in the turnip greens might be helpful just to get them to taste it. Because turnip greens are so bitter that it's going to be really a challenge to get them to really like that one.
Okay, I'll have to see if I decide to do that. I kind of decided that I wasn't going to cook anything in the CSA for them, but then part of me wants to, because I mean, I really want them to expand their palates and, to try different foods out there. But I mean, I know that they're kids as well, and they're going to be resistant.
Yes.
To it.
And there's a real fine line between pushing them to eat vegetables, because it could create a complete revolt where they're going to just not eat vegetables at all, even the ones that they enjoy. So you kind of have to be careful with it.
I wonder, I guess, where that shift changes, and that, so when you're a kid, like, there's different things that you hate, but then as an adult, like, you'll try them again and you'll love them. Like, for instance, Brussels sprouts. We never had Brussels sprouts in my house growing up because my parents didn't like Brussels sprouts, because I'm sure their parents forced them to eat the baby cabbages.
Right.
And they hated it. And as an adult, I had Brussels sprouts, and it's one of my favorite things. So I'm curious psychologically what happens with that and in the how your taste buds play into that. I mean, I'm sure there's tons of scientists out there that have studied this.
Yes, I'm sure there is. Your taste buds do change, and they continue to change as you get older. It's not just one shift that happens. They change continually. And, I think that if you have a child who is a little bit of an adventurous eater, even though they may not taste and love everything, it helps. So introducing them to a variety of different foods and letting them know that it's okay if they don't like something, that they don't have to like everything, I think can be very helpful.
Yeah. Chef Colt also suggested this last week, and I 100% agree, having them cook it with you.
Yes.
Because they held it. It's like they took part and then they wanted to taste what they had. So that was another thing that he kind of suggested for that too. Okay, so the last time you were on the show, we were talking about raw milk and getting it legalized. Where are we in the process of that?
So we're still trying to legalize raw milk. Every year we've had a little bit of a different outcome. So this past year, the legislative session was the third year that we have been declined. And we'll be going back again next year to try and legalize the sale of raw milk once again. And so we started off in the House and passed the House. This is the very first year. Passed it through the House and failed in the Senate. Then the next year we failed in the first committee of the Senate. This year we passed the Senate committee. We passed the Senate and failed in the House committee. So each year we're like getting a little step closer and just having to strategize the policy of what's going on with no funds and just a lot of grassroots passionate people has been a little bit of the challenge, but we will not stop until it gets legalized.
That's my whole thing with food policy. How do you get it started? How do you get people interested and involved? And how do you get these laws passed? Because it seems like it's so much red tape and a lot of work and a lot of, I guess you have to have a lot of passion for what you're doing and
yes, a lot of passion. And there are now with social media, it is a little bit easier to get the word out and to get people involved. But people being involved in social media is very different from people actually being in the legislative session trying to push this through. There's a lot of people who, would like for it to happen, but you actually have to be there and talking to people and, really kind of pushing your agenda with them. This has been a hugely eye-opening experience for me. I would like to say that I'm not very political, but I've seen a lot happen over the past 3 years. And, we're talking about Louisiana politics. So there's a lot of you scratch my back, I scratch yours that happens. And to some extent, I feel like it's kind of human nature. But that's what you're up against. And so I think it takes until the outcry from the public and from the legislative constituents is very loud, then, it's easy for them to say no. But whenever there's a lot of people that are really wanting and pushing for this, we'll get it through.
And where I'm coming from on it, I feel like you should have the choice. Like you should have the choice. If you want to drink raw milk, great. If you don't want to drink raw milk, that's good too. But
Absolutely.
you at least have the choice to make your own decision whether you want to drink this type of milk or not. And a lot of people in the food policy, that's where they're coming from. You cannot agree with something, but you should people should at least have the choice to eat this or not eat this.
Well, of course. And there is some risk involved,
right.
Just like whenever we go to the farmer's market and buy eggs or to the grocery store and buy eggs, there is risk involved. You could possibly get an egg that has some kind of bacteria or virus that could cause problems. Same thing with raw oysters, anything that we're eating, there is risk involved. And, milk is not any different than that. And in fact, pasteurized milk, there's still risk involved.
Look at all the listeria outbreaks that we're having right now with ice cream.
Yes.
To say that one way is better than another, you can't really say that.
Right. And so to say, if I know where the milk is coming from and it's from the farmer that I buy my groceries from, I buy my vegetables from and, maybe buy my chickens from, and I know that they're milking the cow and they're watching what's going on, I should have the choice. And, the government shouldn't be the one to tell me that I can't drink raw milk.
Exactly. All right. We are going to take another break. And when we come back, we have more with Daphne. So come back to us. It's the Lafayette Food Junkie Show on News Talk 96.5 KPEL.
From Boudin to the best burgers Acadiana has to offer, it's the Lafayette Food Junkie Show on News Talk 96.5 KPEL.
Welcome back to the Lafayette Food Junkie Show on News Talk 96.5 KPEL. I'm your host, Tiffiany Decou, and we've been talking with Daphne Olivier with My Food Coach. She came on to talk about Acadiana Food Day happening next Saturday, October 22nd. It's coinciding with the farmers market at the Moncus. I still say horse farm. So,
well, I mean, I think everybody knows what the horse farm is, but it's the Lafayette Farmers and Artisans Market at Moncus Park.
Yes,
is the official name.
I was like, Moncus. It starts with an M. I think I'm going to call it the horse farm until I die. So October brings back Dino's Cajun Violation, which is their pizza that has the boudin on it. And last year it made the best things that I ate list. I'm going to have to go eat another one this year to see how it compares to last year's. But it has pepper jack cheese, boudin, sauteed onions. It's on an olive oil crust. And it's pretty great. If I recall correctly, it's pretty darn great. Which brings us to the trend in extreme foods that has now hit the frozen food aisle. So I was in Walmart the other day, and in the frozen food section, they had the donut hamburgers, and then they also had a version of the Double Down. If you guys don't remember the Double Down, it was like the two fried chicken breasts, and in between it, they had like ham and cheese. Super yummy. It wasn't really super yummy. It was really actually kind of gross because I did eat one. And they're marketing it as late night eats. Yes. Thoughts on these crazy food trends?
Oh, goodness. Well, I think that, obviously there's nothing healthy. They're not pretending to try and be healthy, and then to market it as a late night eat, then it's like double not good for you.
Right.
But as long as there's good food, and, in Acadiana, that's what we're known for, is our really incredible food. Pairing them is always going to be something that people are going to want to do. Let's just try this and see if it works. My thoughts on them, I think a lot of them are it's just kind of gross.
Yeah.
The two flavors may match well. One that's been around for a long time is fried Oreos.
Yeah. I don't like that either.
Don't mess with an Oreo. An Oreo is a good cookie. You don't go messing with that. And that's kind of how I feel about a lot of these foods.
I had a fried Snickers one time, and I think I even captioned it diabetes. Like when I did not eat the whole thing. I think I was only able to take a bite of it. It was just, there's fried butter, like at the Minnesota state.
Wow.
Yeah. Like fry some butter.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like out there, the different trends.
Well, and so anything that you're going to do that's going to put together some kind of fat, so whether it's fried or if it's just a high fat food, along with something that's sweet, or even has a hint of sweetness. That's what our bodies, our taste buds crave, because our brain isn't, and our body isn't developed enough to be able to recognize that it's not something that we need.
Right.
That's what our taste buds crave. So putting together fat and sugar in anything is going to make it taste good. But, it's not a secret that it's really not there's no nutritional value in there at all. So I kind of think of foods as building you up or tearing you down, and those are certainly working in the tear down column of foods.
Yeah. I like that it said late night cravings, which let's just call it what they were trying to say. It's drunk food. That's food
Right.
that you want to eat when you're drunk at 3:00 in the morning.
Right.
And I was telling you, I would probably try the donut burger in person, fresh, like from a location around town. Frozen, heated up in my microwave, I don't think so.
No.
Kind of loses it. And I've tried the Double Down before that KFC had, and it was not good. However, there's a restaurant in Montreal called Joe Beef, and they did their take on a Double Down where it's fried foie gras.
Oh, wow.
And then I don't even think it's fried foie gras. I think it's just foie gras, and then they put stuff in the middle, and I don't know what's in the middle. And I really want to try that. That's like a death row, last meal. I will probably have cardiac arrest after having it. But that's always been something dream-wise that I've wanted to try because it's their kind of take on it. And I love how people in Montreal's opinion about food anyways, they're kind of just like, I'm going to eat whatever I want. And they kind of do it. They kind of
that's
get
kind
extreme
of
with it.
how we are here too. I mean, we're putting boudin in king cake. So that's kind of our take here. It's going to taste good, so I'll eat whatever I want.
What were your thoughts on the Disney gumbo the healthy get.
Oh my gosh, I totally forgot about that. I mean, the reality is that was not gumbo,
right.
you know, and it wasn't gumbo. There were so many things that were so wrong about that. I mean, kale does not belong in gumbo unless you're going to make like a green gumbo sauce, which that, you know, juice, people do that sometimes, but to call that gumbo with kale and tomatoes in it, it was just more of a soup. And the fact that they called it gumbo was just clearly obvious that it wasn't someone from anywhere around here that should have attached gumbo to that soup that they made, because I'm sure it tasted fabulous, but to call it gumbo was just laughable.
The healthy aspect, I've been seeing, okay, so everyone went on the rampage about it, but I've been seeing a couple of people in my news feed have made the recipe. And they're like, this is not gumbo, but it's a good soup. Like, yeah, it's a good healthy soup. I have to say, I've made quinoa with my gumbo before, and I called it hipster gumbo when I did it, and it was not. It was not good together. Yeah. But there is a Kaplan grandmother that does quinoa and gravy. Like she does her like rice and gravy dishes, but she uses quinoa instead of the rice. So I felt like if a Kaplan grandmother is making Cajun dishes with quinoa, right? Some people need to be quiet about the quinoa aspect of it. But having tried it, there is no better thing than rice with gumbo.
Right. And I mean, this is, when you really think about it, this is what you're raised on, you know, so you're trying to change something that you've been eating for decades. And, you know, it could still work. You can still do it, but it's not the traditional, you know, hipster is a good name for it because it's more unconventional slant on doing something.
Yeah. I mean, I tried it. Tried it, didn't like it, not going to do it again. Not the way I want to eat my quinoa.
Yeah. Well, and I do a lot of soups. I don't call much gumbo. I would never say that I personally make gumbo. I just don't really care for gumbo too much, but I'll do soups with a roux in it. But I just call it what it is, that it's a soup, and you know, it has all different kinds of things in it, but it's still soup. It's not gumbo.
What is your I'm going to eat bad foods?
Okay, so it's changed a lot over the years, and I've been doing this. You know, I knew I wanted to be a dietitian from the time I was like 6 or 7 years old. So that does not mean that I have not eaten healthfully that whole entire time. At one point, Doritos and Oreos were the two things that I had to actually ban from my house, and nobody could ever bring those things into my house, no matter what.
Right.
Now, I think, you know, if it's just something where I feel like I just need something different, a good bag of Zapp's potato chips, the Cajun Crawtator.
Going with the dirty dip from the beginning of the show.
Exactly. So I'll do some Zapp's potato chips. You know, I ate a donut the other day, and it's probably been 5 years since I've eaten a donut, and I remembered why it's been 5 years. It wasn't that appealing to me.
Isn't that crazy too? Things that you'll eat a lot and then you go without eating them and then you'll eat them again and you're like, this isn't that great. Like I'm like that with soda. Like I find Coke especially is so super sweet that I can't drink Coke anymore.
Yeah. I used to be a Diet Coke junkie, and then I just realized when I was pregnant with my son, I decided that I didn't need to drink Diet Coke anymore. And now it's just absolutely repulsive. I can't even have a sip of it.
It's been so long since I've had a Diet Coke. One of the doctors that I work for is obsessed with Diet Coke. Like she still drinks it. She said it's a taste thing. Like she is so used to the taste. Like, and she craves that taste. And
for me, it wasn't the taste. It was more the carbonation. So I switched and started drinking like a soda water or carbonated water, and that has totally took place of Diet Coke.
Nice. Yeah. For me, I'll drink tart or like sour sodas. Like I'll crave that. I really like ginger ale, so I'll drink ginger ale a lot, but just regular Coke I cannot drink anymore. I'm like, this is so sweet. And if you have it over ice, it kind of cuts it a little bit, like, but straight from the can, like I'll have like a sip of it and I'm like, done. I can't have it.
Yeah. Now I do soda water. The closest thing I drink with soda that would even come close to soda is kombucha.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Daphne. It's been a pleasure. That's our show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Join us next week, Sunday at 6 p.m. This has been Tiffiany Decou on News Talk 96.5 KPEL, and this is the Lafayette Food Junkie Show. Thanks for listening, and as always, happy eating, Acadiana.